So welcome to Belfast, Wales. I'm Jonathan Watson. Today's guest is Andy Young. Andy's Irish bantamweight title. I've also hold 3 British flyweight titles and 2 world titles. So welcome to Belfast, Wales. And thanks for
thanks very much for having me. Like really excited to be here and kind of give my take on things. And it's a great thing you're doing, and it's brilliant to be part of Belfast, Wales.
Okay, thank you. If we'll start off, how did you, just for people who don't know who you are, how did you get into martial arts, or how did that journey begin?
Yeah, well, martial arts has been really with me from a very young age. I was probably 4 or 5 years old, and I started traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu, and my brother was into it, and I always kind of looked up to him growing up and stuff, and wanted to kind of follow his footsteps. And we'd always watch like Power Rangers and all these kind of martial arts shows, and just really got into it and had a real passion for it. My parents kept me at it, and kind of started the journey that way, the traditional way. And from there, as I got older in the teenage years, I got that testosterone and the competition kind of mindset, and wanted to move on to the other arts and things I could compete in. So looked into kickboxing and taijutsu and all these different things. When I was about 18, 19, MMA started to really surface, and that's when I started looking for an MMA gym or an MMA club, and that's where the really MMA journey began. I was about 18, 19.
And what drew you to MMA?
It was just the challenge of it, and just the fact that I was so into martial arts, and this is like an ultimate test, and the ability to combine it all together, and then just really test myself. The ability to get in there and just to see what you're really made of was really appealing to me, and it's definitely like the best thing I've ever decided to take on.
So basically, as you mentioned, you were looking for an MMA club, and for maybe a lot of people who don't know the MMA scene in Northern Ireland, quite a long time ago it isn't what it is now. MMA has went through a lot of changes in the past few decades, especially globally as well. You've probably heard a lot of detractors call it human cockfighting, which I think is an inaccurate term. And there's now talk of it becoming an Olympic sport. So for anyone who's watching, who maybe doesn't know what it is, can you explain what MMA is exactly, and where you see it going in the future?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's always the stigma and stuff that got surrounded in its early days, and it was just because people had never seen it before, and they're always used to the traditional boxing fights, and if someone was knocked down, for you to follow up and throw shots looked horrendous. But as the sport's progressed, and as the education's been out there to let people know the details of it, and not to mention the actual safety factor of, it may not look good, but if you get dropped in a fight, and if someone throws a few shots and the fight's over, that's safer than a boxing fight if you get knocked down repeatedly and get repeated concussions. So statistically it's way safer. There's more deaths in cheerleading than MMA, so it's crazy. But the sport itself is just that amalgamation and combination of all the different martial arts put together, and to test the skills and test your heart and your will. And when you're in there, if you don't want to be there, the fight's over. You can end at any time. Like, there's 2 guys that are just willing to test themselves against each other, and that's it. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to express yourself that way, and there's nothing but respect, between the athletes and stuff. So it's a great sport, but it's not for everyone. It's just like any contact sport. Rugby's not for everyone. Ice hockey's not for everyone. So it's more so there's some individuals don't get educated on it, and then they kind of badmouth it and stuff. But there's just going to be people like that. But you just don't pay attention to it because they're not interested in it, and they don't have a desire to watch contact sports. But that's fine. Each to their own.
Do you think it becoming an Olympic sport would be a good thing, or?
Oh yeah, I mean this is the thing. It combines 4 Olympic sports, so why not? There's great work by Danny Core and a lot of the guys to set up the Ulster Amateur Mixed Martial Arts Association, and we're getting the sport recognised in Northern Ireland and showing how legit it is, and it's bringing communities together, a lot of cross community work, and it's great to see, and it's a really good outlet for kids to go up in, where they're having an outlet for aggressions, and they're learning to control emotions, which is the key thing to martial arts, and specifically mixed martial arts. You have to control your emotions, and it really leads you down a good path. To have that legitimised and put into the Olympics is just going to further like reinforce how much of a legit sport and how beneficial it is, and it's great to watch too. So very soon, we hope that the Olympics will take it up.
Next question basically is just about yourself. I know recently you were working as a full-time personal trainer, and you gave it up to go as a professional MMA fighter. How difficult was it to make that decision and pursue your fight career? And did you get much support?
Well, I mean, obviously there's a comfort zone with things, and I was lucky. PTing was quite useful for me because it was surrounded by a fitness, kind of lifestyle. So I was able to get my training in and be around something I was passionate about. But you have to take into account, careers like you do need to support yourself, and the fight career is very unpredictable. So I had to wait for the right time. When I won the world title in Belfast, 2017, I was like, right now this is the time. If I'm going to go for it now. At the end of the day, take a year or two and go for this. If it doesn't work out, go back to your normal job, but you have to go for it, and that was the right time for me. But yeah, you gotta always supplement and look after yourself outside the fight career, because you get injured tomorrow and you can't fight for 6 months. So it is very risky if you're surviving on the money from fights, which isn't that much. It's not really wise. So yeah, it's just about just going for it. Just getting outside the comfort zone and just taking that leap. And for me, it's worked out well, and it's just pushes you to more for your commitment to the sport, because you have to be successful because you've went for that lead and that jump.
When you were working full time, just to adventures, how did you balance obviously having a full time job plus obviously commitment to obviously contract fights and stuff? How did you balance those two?
Yeah, well, it's just, I was quite fortunate. I was able to get the right shifts or get the right work in, and I would just make up for the time, early morning or late at night. And again, there's, to be honest, like sometimes having a side job, part-time job or full-time job can be great, because it gives you extra discipline and gets you motivated. Like if you've got a fight coming up and you work at 9 to 5, like you have to do your session before and after training. But if you had the entire day free, there's no one telling you have to get up at 6 or have to get up at 7. Very easy to fall in that comfort zone of like, I'll sleep in at 10 and I don't feel like training now, I'll maybe do it later. And and it's a real, a trap sometimes that people think, oh, it sounds cool to be full time, but it's just like if people are on holiday for 3-4 weeks, they always say, oh, if I had the time, I'd be training every morning. It's not as easy as that. Like, there is all those kind of temptations around just to relax and not put in your best, but having a job or having something like that can actually keep you disciplined and make you do it, so this is all about self-discipline, and that's kind of the real key to being successful, I find.
I know you're very much into the psychology. We're talking about before we started interviewing with David Goggins.
Mm-hmm.
You've been doing work with, I apologise if I get the name wrong, Norik.
Yeah, Norik, yeah.
How has this helped basically with your career, and when did you start working on the mental side of training?
Yeah, well, pretty much, say after our first few professional fights, which didn't go my way, and I was fighting, top boys at the higher weight divisions, and it just wasn't the right move for me. So I had to reassess things, and I had to get my confidence back, and I had to get my mind right, and I had to address that was, what I was kind of struggling with the most was finding that confidence, and it definitely put me into a bad way. First 3 fights, losing them, regardless of how close they were or how they went. Like it was it can be very damaging mentally, more physically, and I had to make sure I had to address that, and getting someone to help, and Norik really kind of was instrumental in getting me on the right path. And I remember doing the first couple of chats with him and stuff, and my motivation and energy was through the roof, and just having things laid out and knowing where you're going before you leave. So I've got the plan, the framework. Like if you're building a house every day, if you're building from scratch, you've got a blueprint and you know what you're building towards. So I had the blueprint then written out, and Norik gave me steps to kind of get there. So it definitely got me to the right frame of mind, and a lot of my own self-study and self-development, and getting this on this journey of just bringing out the best in myself. was really great. So very very in depth to him for that.
Well, if you can, could you give us an example of some of the kind of training you would do? Is it like visualizations, affirmations, or a mixture of both? I know Pele would have visualised scoring goals before he went out to play mats.
Yeah.
Is there something similar to that?
Yeah, I mean, like psychology background myself, doing the university, getting a degree in it, but sports psychology in particular was kind of where my most.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that.
Okay.
Sorry, apologies.
No, okay. So yeah, psychology was where I had a lot of background in, and getting the sports psychology element was always very interesting to me. But yeah, for me anyway, I find that's kind of where the real key is and stuff. And in terms of preparation and stuff, the psychological edge has always been at the forefront. So
would you maybe the day before your fight, or even coming up to it, would you kind of visualise roughly how you see it would go, or would you?
Yeah, well that's it. Bringing all that together, and affirmations, visualization, all that stuff's key. Particular things I would do. You have what you call a script, like a mental rehearsal script in your mind. So you use all 5 of your senses, and you would go in your mind. You would picture the day of the fight. You would picture waking up and going through your day, and walking into the arena and hearing the noises of the crowd and seeing all the guys backstage, seeing your teammates, seeing everyone, your coaches, warming up in the locker room. Tasting the sweat and stuff like that, and getting that real the heat of the dressing room, making everything as real as you can, putting the gloves on, getting them wrapped, and walking out and hearing the crowd and seeing the familiar faces, and going into the cage, hearing the door lock, and going out and performing. But it's important as well not to always think of the best case scenario, because it's just not realistic, and that's the problem. I used to do before. You always think this is going to go well, it's going to go perfect, I'm going to go in there and I'm just going to knock them out in 10 seconds. If that doesn't happen in the first 10 seconds, all of a sudden things can fall apart very quickly for you, and the dice jump in. So you visualize everything. You visualize the fight. You get knocked down in the first 10 seconds, but always coming back. Or you're winning, and then all of a sudden he nearly submits you and you get out of that. Just always scenarios. You play them out, the good and the bad, but you're always on top and you always get the win at the end. And that's definitely helped me. But that's a great technique that I kind of use quite a lot.
And going and kind of continuing on that subject, what makes a fighter? Do you think there's something that you're born with, or is it a mixture of natural ability, maybe the environment that you're growing up in?
I feel like everyone's got a fighter in them. You have to. It's kind of instinctual almost. You'll protect the things you love and you'll fight for them, and that's what I find everyone's got in them. But some people obviously have more of a drive than others to express it, or But it's fighting every means that term. You fight for what you're going for and what you're protecting, or what your goal is. And it can draw certain people immediately to it if they've got things going on. They just want to battle through, and it's something that can be developed too, and you just need the right reason or motivator behind you. But for me anyway, it was just always about just bringing out my best, and fighting and overcoming things would help me grow, and that's kind of the main reason.
And how much has your training changed over the years? Obviously, as you go on, I'm assuming you've discovered better techniques or better ways of competing. How's that changed, and do you have a daily routine that you have?
Yeah, over the years, there's been so much work with Noric, and people that have helped me out that way, and the books I've studied, and David Goggins, for example, and just a lot of inspirational figures and stuff. And there's loads of things I've kind of been constantly developing, and I feel you always have to be growing, you have to be improving, and find new techniques and things to work for you. And for me, I always make sure I kind of start the day outside my comfort zone. There's a term, eat the frog.
Okay.
Which is basically, if you're told you have to eat a frog, do it first thing in the morning, get the worst thing over with, and then the rest of the day is easier. So it's kind of it's a silly, strange mindset, but I'll face the day immediately with a cold shower, with a run. I'll just do something that's maybe a bit the hardest task first, and that gives you the energy for the rest of them. But yeah, staying consistent and making sure that I'm always taking over and always keeping myself in the right mindset, because it is the mindset, you know, again, that comfort zone. Very, very easy to wake up, miss a training session, sleep in, and that affects your day. And that feeling of laziness and stuff like that, it's very dangerous. And that's the problem after fights and after competition. You do need a bit of rest, but there's a tipping point and there's a crossroads where you're like, you can very easily fall into, I'm just going to have a few drinks and I'm going to have some food and I'm just, I'll leave the training for today, and then all of a sudden it's a real hard hike to get back up to where you were.
I know that's plagued some professional boxers. They've had this, as you were saying there, they had their fight and afterwards literally they'll come back to gym for months.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like Ricky Hatton as well is a good example of just like even in terms of the diet and stuff and the weight cut, which is a big factor too. Like, because you're so disciplined and you're having to really cut back on all the food that we as fighters absolutely love. Because the training is so intense, you do get a big appetite, and when you're told you have to cut back so much on it, and a lot of times guys will fast, no food or water for 24 hours plus, you know, saunas and salt baths. It's a miserable place to be, and once your fight's over, you can eat what you want. You know, a lot of guys, I mean, I've been to a couple of seminars on this in particular, and you can see their weight is here, it dips to the weight cut. After the weight cut, it's higher than what it was at the baseline, and a lot of kind of problems arise from that. Like, especially after the career, guys do balloon up and get a lot bigger and stuff, and it is just kind of that real toughness of the, you know, the weight cut and stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of negatives can happen from it, but it's just staying on top, you know.
Kind of continue on with that. I know on the 2nd of March you're fighting again Cage Warriors, where you face Sam Creasy.
Yeah.
If I'm right. How do you? We kind of touched on the mindset, but how do you prepare for a fight? You were saying there about basically after you have a fight, it's important not to have too long a rest period. Do you have like a baseline training level that you do in between fights, or until you get news of the next fight?
Yeah, I mean, I try not to keep it too regimented, but in general, these days I've actually changed up a little bit, where I was training 6 days, now I'm training 7.
Okay.
And it was my boxing coach Brian Morgan, that kind of put it across to me. He's like, we've created 7-day weeks, they don't exist, we've created them. So listen to your body, you know, train every day. If you feel you need to rest. Okay. You know, if you feel you can train. And there's a lot of times I would always take Sunday off, but I wake up and I'm like, I feel really good, you know, I'll go for a run. But then I was like, oh no, it's your rest day, you need to be disciplined, give yourself a rest. But if your body's telling you to do it, you know. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what the mindset and stuff is now, and yeah, for sure, like it's definitely helped me that way. Yeah, and what was
just basically how would you prepare for a fight?
Yeah,
coming up to obviously fight now.
Yeah, so that's the kind of the baseline, where I'm training 7 days a week now and just catering things. Outside of the fight, I would bring it down from 2 or 3 sessions a day to maybe just 1, and just kind of play around, have fun with it. You know, if I want to do more strength training or I want to do longer runs, I can just do it. And it's kind of just that you have to stay consistent. I have to generally be training at least once, you know, maybe 5-6 days a week outside of training camp, but you can't stop completely. You know, it will really like go against you when it comes time for a fight. You know, and being ready too, like, you get a big opportunities. I mean, last year I was just back from a skiing holiday, so at least it's an active holiday, but I was literally in the airport going home and I got a message to fight Ali Bagantinov, who was fought for the UFC title. So that was like 2-3 weeks notice, but my body's always good shape, and when I got back I blasted it, and I felt one of the best shapes I've ever been in.
I know some coaches have complained about some of their fighters kind of like they prepare for a fight and then they're not, so when they do get that call they're like, oh, I'm not ready to go.
And it's against the weight as well. You're told, oh, you know, if you're a 70 kg fighter and you're walking around at 90, you know, which can happen very easily, and you're getting this massive opportunity, you probably take it, but you'll destroy yourself with a weight cut, and then you'll underperform, and then, you know, so it can be very, very tough. But, you know, that's why stay as close as you can and get ready.
If I can ask, I know some in sport, obviously people kind of don't like kind of giving a game plan away, but if I could even ask, do you, like, technical wise, like strike and grab and whatever, do you have a set game plan for each fight, or do you base it on do you look at what that fighter's done before and then shape a game plan around that, or do you have just Andy's game plan and kind of move slightly?
Well, I think like you can get really pulled into thinking about the other person too much. You have to do it a bit because you need to know who you're fighting. Like if you're fighting a black belt person in jiu-jitsu, probably not the best idea to take him down immediately and try and grapple with him in his game. So I always play to where I've got the most leverage. So you need to know him, you need to know yourself, but most of the focus has to be in yourself and what you're doing. Because you have to remember your opponent is also thinking similarly, so they're going to go, right, well, what's his weaknesses? So I'll look at it from almost his point of view and say, right, I've been a weakness here, so I'm going to fix that. So when he comes in, it's not there. So he's not going to have that advantage in his head, you know. I'll be like ready for it. So it's, I mean, there's a lot of mind games and stuff involved, but it's basically just being well rounded, working every area, and just playing to where you're the best, you know, and being ready to adjust and adapt when you're in there.
What's it like, obviously for anyone who's never been to an MMA show, I think, what's it like walking out on the show and walking up to the cage?
It's the best feeling. The nerves are at the highest point just before you walk out. You know, everything's just built up, and I kind of compare it to a roller coaster. You know, you're in the queue and you're queuing up to get in the roller coaster, and your palms are getting sweaty and you're getting so nervous, and you know, you get into the car and they lock the thing down and you're just deep breaths and you're just scary. But as soon as it goes, like that's when it hits you. It's just the adrenaline and just fun. And that's kind of what the walkout is. And then once I get into the cage, that's where it's just fun, you know. But yeah, it's some feeling, and it makes you feel, you know, really truly alive. And it's definitely one of the main reasons to kind of enjoy it so much, you know.
And if I can ask, and this might sound like a stupid question, once you're in the cage and you've reached that kind of end of that journey of preparation for that fight, what's in your mind when there's you facing your opponent and the referee's going go, or?
Yeah, it's just trying to keep the focus on them and not let yourself get pulled away by too many things, and a lot of that comes down to mindfulness training and being in the moment and just trying to be as present as possible and just get the right mindset that you need to go in and just perform. But again, like every fight's going to be different. You're going to be in a different place each time in a fight. Sometimes you're at your best, sometimes you're not. But either way, you just got to go in and just fight, you know, to your absolute best. But there's always a bit of nerves, and you do hear that cage door shut, and you're like, right, okay. But it's just your body's ready, and you got to trust yourself. And another thing about doing that, you know, mental rehearsal and script is just you're a lion. You know, that's the gazelle. Like he's your food essentially. You're going to go out and just go for the kill, and it's just things like that. You maybe I always walk up and down and look at my opponent and, you know, see him as obviously the inferior, and I'm the one that's going to go out and attack and stuff like that. So yeah, just be thankful, you know, to go from happy, you know, lucky person, like really like good, you know, positive person, and then all of a sudden you're switching, and then it's that, you know, essentially animal that just needs to go out and just perform and get the win and turn on that aggression, you know. So it can be a difficult switch, but it comes easier with practice.
Okay. And what would be your highest and lowest point in the cage over the past couple of years?
There's been a lot of great fights and a lot of, you know, all the title wins that I racked up. Each one was amazing. Getting the world title win in Belfast and home city and in front of the entire crowd and family and friends, and to get a finish over a really high level and high prospect fighter, and was just amazing. I mean, I got the finish, got the choke, and you know, I stood up and just kind of raised my arms and seen the entire crowd just on their feet and cheering, and it was just the most incredible feeling. So that was definitely the highest point, and you know, that makes all the years grinded and all the hard work just worth it. And it was amazing. Lowest point, I guess, was probably my first professional fight, and I kind of went in a bit I just came off a really spectacular kind of knockout win, and you know, this is what happens sometimes. You see a lot in MMA. Guys will get a knockout win, their next fight they'll get knocked out, and it's extremes, and it's because of the mindset. You get a little bit too comfortable in yourself, too confident, too cocky almost. But in the preparation for that, it was going well. I had another opponent I was meant to fight who didn't really worry about that much. 2 weeks before the fight, he pulled out and another top guy jumped in, and yeah, that was a much higher level opponent. But at the time, I didn't care. I was like, I'll do it, and I got in and realized the first 2 minutes I'm not in the best shape here, and I started to feel tired, and this guy was all over me, and I just remember being like, I don't want to be here. Like, this is tough. Like, and you know, I knew I couldn't quit, but my body's almost looking for a way out, and I ended up just walking through punches and trying to swing and knock him out. Still made a fight out of it, but I was kind of just an autopilot, and I just took shot after shot, and you know, I was on my feet and walking forward and eating these, and the ref was like, you could just tell I was just taking damage for no reason, and I was going to be probably on my way to lose a decision anyway. But yeah, it was against Brian Moore actually there. It was the same card as Conor McGregor back in the day, but it was a big fight, and I just did not come in the right mindset. And after that, I suffered a lot, like physically. Obviously, I had a lot of bruises on me, and expecting a bit of sympathy or a bit of comfort from my family and friends. They were just like, "What was that? Like, that was just not you." And you know, that was something a real kick up the ass for me. Like,
I know it's probably I'm going to touch on that, but that's how do you bounce back from that?
That's tough. And what had happened was I took that fight, but I had already pre-arranged the next fight against Eki Dalton, who was another very high-ranked and very dangerous featherweight fighter, which is now 2 weight divisions up from where I am now. But it was more the worry about what other people would say, because I couldn't back out of that, even though I knew mentally it wasn't right. After the loss, I thought, right, I'll just come back and I'll get the win here, but I needed a bit more time, and it was only a month or so before that fight, so I needed more time. But it basically, you know, I lost that one, and then I dropped the weight division. I fought my now teammate Alan Philpott, who was extremely highly ranked and a really, really good fighter, and lost that one. And so then that was a real low point. But I recognised this and was like, I need to make a change, and that's where I went off to America and just isolated myself and just focused on getting myself back and kind of rejuvenating everything and keeping the confidence. Because even if you feel you're doing well in the fights, and you know, say they could have went either way, not saying those fights could have, but like if you're doing well, you forget that and you focus on the negative. Like a training session, you know, if you get tapped out in a training session, that's your focus rather than, but I did great before that. Like, your mind's drawn to the most negative thing, and that's what you have to be aware of, and you have to sit down and map out, no, these are the good things, one or two bad, why, fix it.
And that's where that wee voice kind of sometimes comes in, where maybe there's like a moment of quietness, or sitting home and eating your dinner, and the wee voice kind of
and overthinking too. And this is why I would really recommend mindfulness and stuff to people, and being in the present and working on your mind. And this is why martial arts tests you, puts you into that scenario. You have to really think this stuff through. You've got to see it as a lifestyle. You've got to be strong in every point outside of the cage too, like, so that you can deal with a possible loss and just bounce back. So it's kind of easier with time, but I was able to finally get over that. Very, very tough battle though, and get to the point now where it doesn't matter how many I lose, I'll like bounce back no problem. Like, I feel great, and I've got that, you know, indomitable spirit in my mind.
Basically, can't touch on this, sorry. Next one basically would be John Calvin Taylor's book, Win or Learn. Yes, so basically we're talking about how you dealt with losses. How then do you deal with a win? I know that sounds like maybe a question I asked, when you win, you celebrate, but you just mentioned there it can be sometimes.
Yeah, like wins can be more dangerous than losses sometimes. Like I said, you get very inflated sense of ego, and you get too confident in yourself, too cocky in yourself, and it's being grounded and making sure after a win or a loss you're back in the gym as soon as you can. After a win, people sometimes will get the mindset of, I've won, I'm going to take 3 weeks off and enjoy all this and bask in it. Sometimes after a loss, you're so caught up about it, you're so like, I need to make up for this, you're back in the gym the next morning, and that's only going to be more positive for you. So after a win, do the same thing. Either way, you should be back in the gym, and just making sure that you're staying grounded and doing basically what David Goggins almost talked about as well, is just doing a post report of like your performance or your whatever event you've done. So after a win or loss, sitting down and saying what could I have improved on, you know, and just doing it that way and analysing, you know, so just being careful to do that each time.
Just basically balancing the victory,
Yeah, definitely, you know, you got to kind of keep the right emotions in check too.
Who would you say would be your biggest influence or inspiration in your career?
I mean, I could talk about like, you know, a lot of things that got me into martial arts and stuff, and like Bruce Lee and, you know, all these, you know, things you used to watch on TV, and, you know, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and like all these kind of action stars and stuff that were definitely great, and served as really good kind of inspirations to enjoy the sport so much. But I mean, I can't really come down to one person. Like I would say my family is like paramount to my kind of success. Like they're always behind me. You know, my friends and like my girlfriend Stacey and I, like everyone's behind me, and I'm very lucky and very grateful to have that. You know, there's fighters out there, I'm sure their family wasn't behind them, or they don't have a support, and if you quit your job and you fight and you lose and everyone's telling you what do you pack it in, like it's very, very hard not to listen to that, you know. So you got the people behind you, it can give you so much more motivation, so I'm very fortunate that way.
And you've recently started teaching MMA yourself, like we're in your gym you've at the moment. What's that been like? Do you see yourself open up a full-time academy?
Yeah, definitely, and this is the thing, you got to supplement the career, and you got to realise like the fight game is not going to last forever. Again, I can get injured tomorrow, that's me done. You don't know, and for sure, like I'm not going to be fighting into my 50s or 60s, so at some stage the fight career will end. I've got to address that and think about what I'm going to do after, and it is going to be teaching and passing on the knowledge and being surrounded by the sport. It's going to be very hard to ever completely stop, and I never will. I'll be involved in some reason and somehow, so like the teaching is what I want to be doing afterwards, so I'm starting it now and I'm enjoying it, and it's a great supplementation for my own fights, and it's brought me on leaps and bounds actually in my own technique and breaking things down for beginners and helping them in their journey, and you know, sharing all the lessons I've learned, you know, so it's something I really love, passionate about, and you know, it's really just beneficial for everyone, you know.
And on that subject of teaching, what advice, just if anyone's watching maybe now, maybe they never did martial arts before, or they're doing martial arts and want to get into MMA, what advice would you give in competing in the sport, or even combat sports?
Well, the specific thing there is the competition. You know, by all means, like anyone can jump in and you know, study it. There's so many benefits of just, you know, being involved in MMA and learning the techniques and enjoying for all the aspects of the fitness or whatever. But if you're going to compete, you have to be aware of the dangers, not physically, mentally. You know, if you're going to go in and you're going to, you know, you say you're going to be the next big thing, and you put basically a lot of pressure on yourself, or you start talking big to your family and friends, and like, right, okay, so fight day comes, and if you go in, you get embarrassed and knocked out in 10 seconds, like, you can be very, very, like, in a bad place from that. Like, a lot of guys fall into depression very quickly, because that's a lot of that's ego, obviously, like losing and stuff like that. It's a horrendous feeling, and even, you know, our bodies are kind of designed, if you were to lose and say a fight, it's kind of, it punishes you and makes you feel really bad, because if that was back in caveman days and you got like basically beaten battle or killed, you know, that's it, you can't let that happen again, so you've got to feel terrible to let you know that's wrong, you can't let that happen, so your body's in a real bad way from it, so you have, and your mind, so you have to make sure that you're aware of that you're able to be at a sense of peace of like, right, if I do lose, this is how I'm going to act, this is how I'm going to behave, have your values down, know the type of person you are, and accept that risk, and it can't happen. But the flip side of that, you know, obviously there's so many great things to it, and getting the wins and all the rest of it, but the work that's going to be put into that is a lot, and the weight cuts, and you know, the early starts and the late, you know, training sessions and all stuff you see outside of the fight, like, you know, it's just a wee bit extra that you've got to do, and people just aren't prepared sometimes for that. So take it all on board, decide where you want to go. If you want to do it as a hobby, a few fights, it's no big deal, but map out where you want to go before you start, and be ready for all the risks that, you know, are involved, and then just have fun with it.
Just like what you were saying before, pretty much have like a blueprint, like this is...
Yeah, you need to know where you're going, yeah. I mean, if you want to be a title holder and that'll satisfy with that, okay, that's great, you know, but if you want to be like world UFC champion, you know, that's going to be different. So you got to take the right steps. You got to be training like, you know, a certain way for that, as opposed to 1 or 2 fights for a bit of fun. It's a different mindset. It's a different form of training and a different, you know, lifestyle you got to live.
And what would be some of the biggest lessons you've learned so far? I know we've kind of touched on a variety, but what would you say would be your biggest lessons you've learned from?
Well, the thing is, this is like the main philosophy I kind of go by now is it's kind of taken from Stoic philosophy of the obstacle is the way. So every obstacle I face is basically an opportunity in disguise, and there's only positives from it. I mean, I remember losing a very, very close decision in the first world title fight, and you know, everyone thought I won it, I thought I won it, but it doesn't matter, you know, it's not to me. I should have finished the fight, I should have won the decision, but regardless of the outcome, I was in backstage and I was like, this has happened for a reason, you know, and there's an opportunity here, and I kept trying to find it, and then it leads to a world title in Ukraine, and then it leads to a world title in my own city of Belfast. And if I had won the fight, you don't know if that would have happened or where I would have went. So there is opportunities in everything you face. You get injured, like I've been injured. I've had, you know, a broken hand going in for a British title fight, you know, bad knee, all the rest of it. But that's given me more kind of motivation, you know, because I've got this. I have to perform. I have to be switched on. I can't be lazy or too relaxed in there. I have to put in the, you know, extra training sessions and make sure I'm ahead of my rehab, and you know, it just developed a better mindset for me. So honestly, like everything you face, if it's you know, you feel it's a negative, it's an opportunity. There's something there. You know, like I said, if you're something happened and say you broke your leg, well, it's an opportunity maybe to study more or to work on your upper body, or it's something you never would have done before if it wasn't for that injury.
Take flip it around and do it.
Yeah, you literally, and you can, and it's like I said, it's a choice. You know, it's what you choose to do with whatever happens to you. So that's given me such peace of mind. And going into say this next fight or any fight now, I'll know deep down how much preparation I've done, and when I know I've prepared my best, I'm in a sense of peace now. It's like, right, I've prepared my best, I'm just going to go in and perform my best, and that's it. I can let go. You know, I don't focus so much on the win or loss, it's just performing, and as long as I feel like I've performed, I'm happy. You know, I've had wins and I felt disappointed because I haven't performed. You know, I mean, I've kind of got a great 3-round fight and had a submission in the last 30 seconds, but didn't finish it. And I was afterwards, I was just so angry at myself. I was like, I can't believe I didn't get that. And actually, Norik was in my corner for that, but he was like, stop me and said, don't associate your negative emotion with the win. Yeah. Separate that, and that's really important too. Just analyze it after a few days later of what technically could have done better. You know, so yeah, so it's such an important aspect, and you know, you gotta stay on top of it.
And what I know we touched on your coach, and then you got a fight on the 2nd of March. What's next for yourself then, long term?
Yeah, well, I mean, I see this as I had a couple of losses there now, so this is obviously me getting back to it, and this is me showing basically that in my mind I know I'm going to be the best, and this is just another stepping stone for me to get there, and it's a different path than maybe I would have been on if I had won those fights, but you don't know which one actually would have worked out better for me. But this is pushing me up there, and I'm going to get this win, I'm going to move up the ladder, I want to get another world title fight, and like I said, if I had won the last 4 or whatever, I don't know where I would have been, but this has pushed me in a direction now where I'm with Cage Warriors, and I feel this is going to get me towards the world title fight there, and get me 3 world titles, and that's a great legacy to have. And for me, I'm just going to push up the ladder. I want to fight the very best in the world and be known as the very best flyweight in the world, and until I am that, I'm not going to stop.
Last question, basically, and I always finish the interviews with this. What advice, if you could, would you give your younger self if you were able to go back?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I guess you just gotta, I would say to myself, to really, that like mindset I was just talking about, the obstacle is the way, and just to know that there is an opportunity in everything, and to really put life in perspective, from a younger age, to know that this isn't forever. It sounds more morbid, but you gotta realize, like, we're not going to be here forever. One day we're going to die. We've got to make sure that we're living life to its fullest. So don't, fall out with people. Don't be skipping and being too lazy, and don't sleep in, and don't be, just enjoy your life and just make the most of it and have a feeling of responsibility of I've got this great opportunity to live here. I've got to really do my absolute best for it. So yeah, I mean, I guess if I had that from a younger age, it would really help, push me even better in the right direction.
That's great. Just to finish off then, what's your class times? When do you teach?
Yeah, so I've got Monday and Wednesday in Newton Arts Leisure Centre, Friday, Sunday in Bangor, and a class in Hollywood on Thursday. But yeah, it's definitely something I'm enjoying in the teaching aspect of it, and I'm also very grateful for everyone's support in me and the sponsors and everyone's behind me, and this is going to be the big kind of comeback now, and I'm going to get to the very top again, and it's just great. The people that are behind you, and everyone's supporting me, so I'll do everyone proud.
And thank you again for your time, and we basically wish you all the best for the 2nd of March and getting the win and moving forward. So
Thank you very
thank
much.
you, Andy.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Thanks for your time.